jack beans, pigeon peas, papaya, all kind of things you've never heard of. That's not the story here though today. Today the story is a new old way of farming, agroforestry. It's all part of the next wave regenerative movement that we're seeing everywhere we go. Come on, let me take you where the food comes from. So regenerative farming is kind of a label that regenerative farmers don't even really put on themselves. Nobody's hammering a sign out front that says John Smith, regenerative farmer. You're too busy working. You're too busy trying to keep the farm running. Let's talk about your story. What spoke to you about this and this kind of farming? What sparked your interest? And how is it that you've come to be a part of, and apparently a central part of, such a fascinating collection of farmers from literally all over the world?
Yeah, well, my background is vegetable farming, so that's, row crops and tillage, and it's organic, so, we're still organic farming, but it is a more intensive management, and you can't really till or grow vegetables under trees. So when I got here, the site is really special, but it's not very well suited to commercial vegetables because there's a pond on every parcel in the middle of the cleared area.
Right.
And there's oaks everywhere. There's cabbage palms everywhere and pines. And I first started thinking, where am I gonna start my plot? And I felt like in order to do it the right way, I would have to cut down trees. And I couldn't really bring myself to cut down these gorgeous oaks that are, who knows, 60, 70-year-old oaks, maybe older. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I remembered, in my undergrad, I went to school for agriculture science, and I did take a class called permaculture design. And I remember some of those design strategies were basically looking at the site that you're working and fitting your plans within that site and complementing the site so that you're not working against the site.
So letting the land tell you what to do instead of you telling the land what to do.
Yeah, observing. And a lot of the focus in that first year is on observation. And if you're running a business, you need to make money. You can't just spend a whole year looking at the ground, right? So I wanted to incorporate agritourism when I first started, and we had some weddings here and Airbnb. So I was doing that at the same time as we were building it out.
I know you also do some consulting work. I know a lot of the people that we're going to meet today do as well. You're teaching people these next level ways that are really, really old level ways. It's farming by common sense, like you say, doing what the land says instead of trying to make the land do what you say, instead of taking it out of a book and saying, today we spray because the calendar says we spray.
Yes. And a big part of what you've seen today is examples of people growing without irrigation. And that is, my background is irrigation, so that's very shocking to me.
So these are some of the fascinating, much of what you're doing is ancient and tried and true. Some of what you're doing is experimental. Together, you and your friends are really kind of pushing into maybe the next agricultural frontier.
It's very exciting, and I'm really blessed to know these people and connect with them and learn from them. I'm still very early on in my journey of learning of these practices, and I haven't actually spent a lot of time managing them myself. I built this over the last 4 years with Mike. Mike joined about a year and a half ago, and he's taught me a lot about how the system succeeds over time and how to start it, how to manage it, but I haven't actually had the time to really work with him and manage it. So I'm on my journey of learning, and I'm really excited to see what can we pull or borrow from this that could complement a conventional system, like with building organic matter, mulching the soil, and retaining more water in the soil. And I feel like there are a lot of concepts we could borrow if we could sync them up right and manage them with machinery,
Sure.
because labor is very expensive.
It's gonna take me a minute to get back in my flow here. Wait a minute, those are black beans.
Yep, there's a mix.
All right, so what have I got? Black beans and black-eyed peas?
Correct.
Ooh, so
Surprise.
now we're just putting them out in this tray. You're gonna sort through them.
Yep.
So I'm
We're just
probably not
cracking them.
really much help. It's been a long time.
This is how we relax.
Well, this is not something I expected to see. We've been down here looking at papaya,
Yep.
and bananas, and coconut, and lychee fruit, and all of these crazy things that you don't even, we're in very subtropical Southwest Florida, and I did not expect to be sitting here shelling black-eyed peas and black beans, but I'm with you, it's kind of therapeutic. I don't mind at all. Mike, you're Brazilian.
Yeah, born in Brazil, grew up in Brazil until 18 years old. We grew avocado, citrus, coffee.
So anybody who
Bananas,
doesn't know,
yucca.
Brazil is its own Garden of Eden.
Yes.
A lot of things that we eat in the United States
Yep.
come from Brazil, and there's a lot to be learned from Brazilian agriculture.
My dad was living in Tampa when I was 22,
Yeah.
so I came to visit my daddy in Tampa. When I saw coconuts everywhere and people growing certain tropical fruits and the mangoes that are not the common ones you see on the store, so I'm like, all right, this is the place to be.
So what exactly do you do? I know you're a consultant. You help people plan and lay out farms and get started, and
Managing the plants,
So that-
managing the existing areas.
Physically working the
Yeah,
system.
the physically working too. That's my favorite part of. I do a consultation and I help in designing, but most of my consultations I wanna push the client to dream and vision what they want.
and what they can do.
Yeah, what they can do too.
And one thing that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding you're pretty big on trying to do all this without irrigation?
Yes, from my background in Brazilian farming,
Yeah.
that is not a Home Depot or Tractor Supply that you can just go in the corner and buy your
Right.
PVC or order online.
Sure.
A lot of the
You're not
farms-
running drip lines through the rainforest.
Yeah, a lot of That way it makes you learn what the land wants to grow too, and that's just a bean. That's the start of a system that we planted a few months ago.
Sure.
And we planted the bananas, we planted papayas, we planted all the fruit trees that we had it all at the same time on the same line. And we probably didn't, probably had rain maybe twice on it. But we were able to harvest these beans. Like,
You're telling me, Mike, that these peas grew without irrigation?
yeah,
That's just from natural rainfall?
from the wretched rainfall, little bit of the fog at night,
Like humidity.
the little humidity at
That's
night.
astonishing.
So, and this is just the first harvest we got out of the
out
line.
of poor soil.
Out of sandy soil with no rain. And as we are harvesting this, there are other plants that are emerging through the soil that takes a little bit longer to sprout.
So really, this kind of farming is just looking at and listening to Mother Nature and learning from what's already here.
And trying to utilize the time, because again, if we plant just the mango seed on
Yeah.
the ground and we're gonna wait it, even if it's a grafted tree, you're still gonna have to wait 3-4 years to get a mango out of it. So we might as well eat some beans and peas and some yucca and bananas and
Why
papayas
not?
In the
It's all
meantime.
while
doing
that mango
work
is developing.
to make the rest of the whole ecosystem work and make it healthy, keep it healthy, prepare it to just produce and produce and
eons.
produce and produce.
And all that depends on who is working the land.
Sure. So you go live where you are, where you're working. Then when that job is done, or everybody, it's just time to move on. You're going somewhere else to do it all over again.
It's a full immersion because you can't really understand a landscape if you come and go.
Yeah.
And you're only there 5 days a week. We wake up and we go to sleep with the land.
You're in it.
Yeah, and that's the best way to understand these regenerative systems.
I believe they call that old school. Mike, these are all things that grow on this property,
Yes,
and they've all grown without irrigation.
yes,
Wow, this is a papaya,
yes.
but this is kind of a special papaya. The striping is what makes it special.
Yeah, the variegation of it makes it special.
So we saw these growing, we saw the bananas growing. Most of the things on this table, I don't even recognize. I see two that I knew when I got here today. I already got that wrong earlier. I see the black-eyed peas and black beans that are just super familiar to me because I love peas and beans. I have no idea what the rest of this stuff is. Mike, what are these? They look like big peppercorns.
So those are called pigeon pea.
Pigeon peas. We see this a lot in Caribbean cuisine, but unlike a pea like this, which grows in a pod on a bush close to the ground, did we see those coming off a tree?
Yeah, this grows up in a tree that gets 9 feet, 10 feet high.
Yeah.
That's a good size to have it manage them. So they
So
shade
again,
a
this
lot
would
of
be
fruit
a
trees.
tree that you would start as that top cover, and you'd be growing other things under that. That's part of how you're able to not irrigate and to rely on rainfall and conserving and utilizing what moisture is naturally there from dew, from fog, from just whatever's holding on to it, whatever you can do to hold on to that. So now this is my favorite thing on the table because I literally have no idea what this is.
Bean pod that big. So this one, it's called jack bean.
Jack bean.
We call in Brazil pig bean
Pig
because
bean.
they feed it to the pigs.
So what's the purpose of growing a crop like this here on this farm? Is this just part of the biosphere of the farm? This is bringing something to the soil that you need, something conserving moisture, something, it plays a role.
Creating root system on the soil.
So even though you're not going to eat it, there would be a use for it.
Yeah.
It's usul as animal feed.
Yeah, animal feed.
And in a pinch, if you're hungry, you can boil up a mess of these.
Yeah, they do taste all right. It's just they take 4 or 5 times longer to cook than a normal bean.
So Byron, the international parade continues. Do you know what this is? Because like the people at home probably don't know what this is. First, tell us where you're from.
Well, I'm from New Zealand.
New Zealand. So this would continue with this question, do you know what this is?
This looks like a banana flower.
Banana flower.
Actually, a correction, it's a flower bell. So if you peel these apart, under each of these petals are the individual flowers. So the whole thing itself is a flower bell.
So I'll take it you do know what this is, even though you're from New Zealand, and we are in Southwest Florida, really in the jungle, kind of down here. I don't think of New Zealand as a jungly, tropically kind of climate.
New Zealand's very diverse.
Yeah?
It spans a long ways up and down. And so we've got semi-tropical all the way down to very cold.
So you're kind of doing some traveling yourself and taking notes and learning as you go. Tell me about that process.
Well, we always have more to learn, Chip. And so education is a really big thing that I'm leaning into. And you get to learn a lot by seeing what other people are doing. You learn from their mistakes and you get new ideas. And so that's what I'm doing here. I travel Costa Rica, Brazil, Florida, because they're all similar climates to what I'm doing in New Zealand. It's also where the cutting edge of this practice is, syntropic agroforestry.
This is what we're talking about, a system of plants living together instead of one plant, one field. Got a taller tree to provide cover and shelter for younger trees that are providing shelter and cover for smaller ground plants. It's all feeding water into the same part. You're able to conserve that moisture, keep it all together, and it really works kind of like a terrarium where you would set up an aquarium without water and put plants in it. It's almost that same kind of closed loop system.
Two things. One, it's almost more just like a natural system. A natural forest develops in the same way. You have fast growing pioneer species and the slower growing species are nurtured by those ones. But that's one flavor of agroforestry. The other flavors of agroforestry can include just trees with animals, trees incorporated with vegetable crops, multiple trees stacked on top of each other. So agroforestry is like an umbrella term, and this is what we're looking at today is syntropic agroforestry, successional agroforestry.
We're all here in Southwest Florida today, and it's just fascinating. I think we've only met 1 or 2 Floridians. We've got the kind of this international parade. And what's funny is this isn't a convention, it's not a conference, it's just like-minded people who travel and learn and meet and take what they learn back to their own farming operations or wherever it is that they fit in to this whole piece of farming. Greg, your full name is Gregoire, right?
Correct, from France.
And that's pretty French sounding to me. You are French. What part?
Brittany, so northwest of France, yeah. I lived in a couple places around the planet, but ended up marrying a beautiful woman in Nevada, Las Vegas, which lacked a little bit of water.
You would not be the first person to marry a beautiful woman in Las Vegas.
Exactly.
So what did your family do in France?
My mom is a teacher. My dad used to work in the pharmaceutical industry, but
okay, so
nothing to do with farming.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So you came to the U.S. to...
I was in the video industry, kind of what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah.
So filmmaking. Got a couple years, traveling around, doing documentaries, marketing, all kind of stuff. But eventually, you meet the same problem in a lot of different places, and you pin it down to a few simple things, and the soil, the health of people, the food industry. So I think that just in my own context is just exploring the idea of personal responsibility. What can you do at your level,
So farming appealed to you not necessarily because of wanting to grow your own food or love of the land or those kind of things, but because of your desire to be a better person, be more planet friendly.
It brings a lot of different aspects. Obviously, I want to be healthy. I want to provide, in the way that I can. But I think if you just look at the problem around you, there's a lot of little things you can do just in your garden, and
So now we're talking to Mike, who was from Brazil, who brought these techniques to Southwest Florida, began implementing them here with similar things to the climate he dealt with at home. Then we talked to Byron, who's from New Zealand. He's doing the same kind of thing because, again, in New Zealand, you wouldn't think, but he's growing citrus, and it's a similar climate to what he's seeing in the place that he goes, Brazil, Costa Rica, Florida. He's going to take that back to New Zealand. How do you do things differently 4.5 hours north of here in Gainesville? What's your crop mix like?
Yeah, the crops, everybody knows, like the plums, the peaches, the nectarines, the grapes grow as well, the persimmons, pecan, chestnut. So the target crops are not the hardest things to figure out. It's mostly what are you going to use to support the overall systems. And so for me right now, it's a lot of trials, and a lot of people call those invasive species, so it's a source of inspiration. Okay, what does nature do to restore ecosystem, to restore those damaged piece of land? You can pick up, select those species. They're not going to be the same as you see in Brazil, not going to be the same as South Florida.
Sure.
But it might be a Chinese tallow, it might be Enterolobium, those different acacia, a lot of things. And for me, it's my first year, so the big part is propagation material and trying on things to see what works and what doesn't.
So, Josh, let's talk about your part here. Where do you fit into this cast of characters who are all gathered here today to find out more about what they do and how they farm and how to do it better and take it back where they are and where they come from? Where do you fit into this, Steve?
Professionally speaking, I'm an agroforestry consultant and designer. I don't know if I would refer to myself as classically trained, quote unquote. But I've been trained and learned under some of the best in the world at what they do.
And so now you're working as a consultant, you're working with other people who are trying to establish their own agroforestry operations. Is that, then you're just going and going, let me tell you what I know, let me tell you what I've learned.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be put in the position of running some decent sized projects and being involved in many decent sized projects. And like the farm in Spain that I just partnered on, we have 8,000 meters of agroforestry, 16,000 trees. Before I came here, I pruned 16,000 trees and planted another 1,500. And I've done all kinds of stuff like that.
I kind of believe as we've met more and more people, again, practicing regenerative farming without hanging a label on anything, I think that's a wave. I think that's coming. I think we're beginning to see what's next for farming after conventional post-World War II agriculture that we have seen provide sustenance and it saved people from starvation. It created problems of its own. Now we're to the next jumping off point as a society where it's people like you and your friends and colleagues who are looking to solve those problems and see how do we sustain all of this, keep a stronger planet and stronger people.
There's a J.M. Fortier quote I like a lot, and I just heard it the other day. We don't necessarily need more mass production. What we need is production by the masses. So one of the things that I really want to encourage people to do is to take control of their own lives and to be involved in food production. And I would love to see many more small farms pop up with diversified income streams than be more focused on very large-scale farming
So
as a future.
plant that garden in the backyard. If nothing else, you'll find out just how hard it really is.
And there's very, very serious examples of small-scale market gardening being very profitable. So it's something worth recognizing.
Go ahead and pop them in half. You could take this out, and this is like the most delicious little coconut flan kind of material. I wish I had enough spoons for everyone to try this. You'll try one later.